Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome. I would like to say it's a sunny welcome, but unfortunately it's rather gray here in New York. We welcome you to our regular startup news from the startup and tech entrepreneurship scenes in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. We are back from our summer break. I only cling on to this floral motif short sleeve I'm wearing. And we bring you a massive news episode today. In fact, it's so long we had to cut it into 2 episodes. So double the fun. Our startup news is recorded with me in New York City. Joe is joining from Frankfurt.
Hey, from nightly Frankfurt. Hey guys, how you doing?
And now I started to mention myself first, which if you want to get into German idioms, in German you usually learn the donkey always mentions himself first. I learned that when I grew up. Der Esel nennt sich immer zuerst. Today's news cut is August 19th. As always, all news not included will be in our next shows. Next news wrap-up to be published October 2nd, wrapping up September and the remaining August then. We needed to cut our news seriously today, so you can have a brief news overview. We will have other news pieces in our blog posts on Startuprad.io/blog. Those are the ones that we simply cannot cover here. Otherwise, the news would stretch far too long. To give you a bit of background, this time we went through more than 350 news pieces for you. Therefore, we decided for the first time in the history of Startuprad.io that we will split this news recording into 2 pieces to keep them short and crisp. Happy Labor Day to you if you are celebrating. And entrepreneurs, since they are working so much, I guess, have a special relationship to Labor Day. But before I talk myself even more into a corner, I'm going to hand it over to you, Joe, to kick us off with the highlights.
Yes. Thanks, Chris. I always appreciate your energy here. The highlights. By the way, I love Labor Day because it frequently coincides with my birthday. Our highlights: startup funding momentum across Europe and the DACH region accelerated in August with AI, climate tech, and fintech taking center stage. Berlin's AI ecosystem made global headlines as one stealth unicorn skyrocketed from $350 million to a $2.3 billion valuation in just 4 months, underlining the region's dominance in enterprise automation and SaaS-driven AI. Meanwhile, the macro backdrop remains tense, with Germany's GDP contracting sparking recession fears, but venture capital continues to pour into deep tech and energy innovation as hedge bets against cyclical slowdown. Major deals shaped this month's narrative. Climeworks raised $162 million to advance its CO2 capture technology, while Stuttgart-based MakerSite secured 60 million euros Series B to scale its sustainable supply chain software. Q and added 60 million Series A to push quantum-inspired climate solutions, and Munich's Tanso closed 12 million euros Series A, underscoring climate tech as a long-term growth pillar. On the fintech front, N26 faced regulatory heat and leadership shakeups, even as Scanbot SDK exited via acquisition and Bling absorbed FinStep, highlighting both consolidation and compliance challenges in Europe's neobanking sector. For founders and VCs, these developments signal a bifurcated market. Late-stage climate and AI startups are attracting mega rounds and unicorn valuations, while fintech and mobility players like Lilium navigate restructuring and defense pivots to secure survival. This month, wave of scale-ups and exit reinforces the thesis that Europe's competitive edge lies in climate innovation, quantum technologies, and enterprise AI, sectors now too big for global investors to ignore. Let's talk startups. There's a link. You can give us feedback. As we said, the first interview, the first piece of this news will go live September 1st, 2025. And I'm just turning around and checking. And number 2, part 2 will go live on September 4th, 2025. Chris, you always, you look pretty sharp in your shirt. And by the way, without discussing it up front, we both are wearing shirts. Chris, you want to take over the top news, especially if you're dressed so nice.
For once, we clean up. I'm going to kick things off with Berlin's n8n. It's a workflow automation startup that has rocketed to a $2.3 billion pre-money valuation in August, like a week ago, after Excel led a mega round with Meritech Capital expected to join, marking one of Europe's biggest AI-driven automation deals this year. The company's value has jumped from just $350 million in March 24. So within 1.5 years, we have seen a more than 6 times increase there on the back of surging demand for AI agents and enterprise-grade workflow automation. They say they have an annual recurring revenue of more than $40 million and a 200,000 member community. And n8n has become a leading open source alternative to Zapier and Make.com. Lilium brings in Pluta as insolvency advisor amid their defense pivot. So Lilium, we talked about them quite often in our podcast already, based in Munich, is an air taxi startup that faces mounting insolvency pressures, as Süddeutsche Zeitung has reported, for example, several times last week. And restructuring advisor AAMG Pluta has been now called in to guide the company through its crisis. That follows Handelsblatt's revelations that Lilium is weighing a defense sector pivot to generate near-term revenues, with the defense sector right now being quite booming in European countries because they're investing more due to the Ukraine war and the US being a less reliable partner than in the past. Business Insider's note on fresh investor interest is reviving a 20 million euro financing deal. Despite pioneering Europe's EVTOL ambitions, Lilium has endured cash burn, layoffs, and delayed certification milestones. So it's still relatively uncertain what their commercial future will bring. And now thinking about dual use applications in defense and emergency services, Lilium is pivoting, kind of hedging the risk, and they are joining a wider European trend of aerospace startups turning to government-based contracts to bridge long funding cycles. N26, another company we've been talking about a lot here, a neobank based in Berlin, is facing a severe governance crisis since probably the most severe one since its founding, as their co-founder and CEO Valentin Stalf stepped down a couple of days ago, August 15th, earlier than planned. Reported, for example, by Golem and FAZ. The exit follows BaFin's special audit, BaFin being the regulatory committee institution in
Financial supervisor.
Germany. Financial supervisor. So they audited N26 and revealed serious deficiencies, gravierende Mängel in fraud prevention and compliance, raising investor impatience and regulatory pressure. The move also coincides with leadership reshuffles, including a new chief risk officer from Santander, replacing N26 outgoing CRO. And together, these developments mark a deep structural shakeup at a company where we've had a lot of shakeups. I mean, we have been talking about them quite often now, and watching them from being a company where a lot of people were expecting great things from to something that right now feels as if every month we come up with a new talk about, okay, this is their next issue.
And the sad thing is that, for example, companies like a Revolut show that the neobank model can work. So it's at least right now is not working out as it could be.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to Switzerland, where we see the clean tech scale-up Orange Bet having secured a landmark 825 million euros allocation from the European Hydrogen Bank, according to MoneyCap. The funding will be used to expand industrial-scale hydrogen production and infrastructure projects across Europe. So Orange Bet is going to become one of the largest single hydrogen allocations tied to a DACH-based company. Orange Bet's win underscores Brussels' determination to accelerate green hydrogen commercialization as part of the EU's decarbonization strategy, and it also positions the Swiss player alongside other continental leaders such as Sunfire from Germany or H2 Mobility. Orange Bet is targeting both industrial energy users and cross-border hydrogen corridors and aims to become a central enabler of Europe's clean tech transitions. And that's it with the really big top news section. And that leaves us with our first little ad break.
Taking over after the ad break from Chris, we don't put anything here in housekeeping and time to brag this month, but there'll be more coming up. Talking about the ecosystem here. In Europe, the European Innovation Council selects 40 startups for new funding round reported by Silicon Canals. They selected 40 startups from across Europe for equity and grant support. The companies span biotech, AI, and sustainability, reflecting EU-level support for scaling deep tech. Several DACH startups are included, though not all names were disclosed in this article. Two companies, Quant, QWANT, and Ecosia launch STAN, STAAN, Europe's independent search index. TechCrunch reported that French search engine Quant and German eco-search provider Ecosia jointly launched STAN, a European search index designed as a privacy-first alternative to Google. They aim to enhance Europe's digital sovereignty and lay the groundwork for AI-native retrieval systems. The launch could reshape the European search and ad tech market. Going to Germany here, the Ifo Business Climate Index edges higher in July 2025. On July 25th, 2025, the Ifo Institute in Munich reported a modest increase in its closely watched Business Climate Index, reflecting cautious optimism in the German economy. Sentiment improved in industry and services, but remained weak in construction and retail. In other news, Dresden tops SumUp 2025 cost ranking for founders. Leipzig and Bremen follow. SumUp's analysis of 71 German cities ranked Dresden number 1 for cost-efficient funding, citing low retail rents, utilities, and competitive effective corporate tax. Leipzig placed second, Bremen third, while Munich ranked last among the top 20 due to high rents and utilities, but apparently you could still work as a high-rent startup hub. The study weights median wages, unemployment, rents, utilities, and effective corporate tax, signaling cost advantages in East German hubs for early-stage teams. KfW, Gründungsmonitor 2025, meaning the founding monitor 2025, reports stable startup activity despite economic headwinds. Munich Startup summarized the KfW Gründungsmonitor 2025, showing that the number of new businesses in Germany remains robust. Early stage activity is supported by resilience in tech and digital sectors, even as macroeconomic uncertainty weighs on financing. Policymakers are watching indicators closely to refine support schemes. German GDP dips again. Technical recession looms in Q2 2025. Tagesschau, it's like the main news source in Germany, right? everybody watches Tagesschau 8
That's
p.m.
the
here
law.
in Germany.
It's the law. You have to watch
It's a law.
it.
Yeah. They reported that Germany's economy shrank by 0.2% in Q2 after flat Q1, meeting the definition of a technical recession. Exports and industrial output weakened while private consumption stagnated despite easing inflation. The downturn adds pressure to fiscal debates and heightens importance of startup innovation-driven growth narratives in the DACH region. Berlin to set new financial rails for defense startups to speed procurement and scale. Handelsblatt reported the federal government will establish funding procurement Weichen, meaning rails, to help defense tech startups commercialize faster. Aligns with dual-use momentum and NATO-related demand. Dual-use, didn't we just have something with Lilium like that? No new budget timelines versus our priority entry. Germany clears the path for remote operated driving pilots, opening the door for teleoperation startups. German authorities signaled the go-ahead for remote-controlled driving pilots, establishing the framework for teleoperation in logistics and mobility. The policy shift could benefit companies building tele-driving stacks, remote ops centers, and safety cases align with EU rules. The article does not name specific startups. And Chris, you know what's very interesting? We actually talked about it. I talked with a lawyer about it. Inside Germany's autonomous driving law in 2021, because this was already within the frame of a law. So we have been quite ahead of the curve here. But Chris, you looks pretty Bavarian. You want to take over Bavaria here. It's a unique thing that they are highlighted here.
I mean, you're dressed in white and blue too. But yeah, I mean, autonomous driving, this is also a story that has been with us forever. And we've been promised that we are so close to finally actually making it work. Waymo apparently works pretty well on the US West Coast. But so far, I mean, I'm sure if you went back in the archives that you would be able to find assumptions, promises that would have said, okay, in 2025, there will be autonomous driving everywhere. And not much has happened.
Yeah. But we've already discussed it in 2021. So there will be one person ahead of a lot of screens. And if any autonomous driving vehicle gets into trouble, a human driver from a center takes over. That was basically the idea we discussed in 2021, and now it seems to become reality, at least in parts.
Mm-hmm. There also was a huge report in Guardian based on reporting, I think, even for Handelsblatt from Germany, about how nonchalant Tesla actually deals with really deadly crashes and the car taking over when the drivers don't really want it. And then actually a lot of times the people who are who are the survivors of the dead people never get answers for what actually happened in the car and why the crash happened, why it accelerated. It was a really disturbing read. Anyway, Bavaria, we established it already, white and blue, state in the German South, passes a landmark resolution to unlock foundation capital for startups and VC funds. The Bavarian Parliament approved a pro-startup resolution to invest in startups and VC funds, a little policy tweak that aims at attracting more endowment capital into DACH venture markets. Austria, to the south of Bavaria and to the south of Germany, there we see what they call a Gründerwelle, a founders wave, meaning there's a clear uptick in new company formations in Austria. Despite the macro headwinds, a surge indicating resilient founder activity, improving access vehicles, public co-funding, corporates, and regional initiatives. We have in the show notes detailed split for different sectors and seed series totals. Vienna-based Allocator One launches a fund of funds for European VC. It's a platform designed to channel institutional money into European VC funds. And the startup model aims to diversify LP risk and simplify access to venture investments. Switzerland, as we say in geography, to the left of Austria, west of Austria, has
you just said to the left of Chris.
Yeah, that's what we say. Pinterest launches a new AI tech hub in Zurich in order to strengthen their DACH region footprint, and also signaling a major investment in local research and development. The hub will focus on personalization, generative AI, and content safety. And this, our dear friends, is already the end of part 1 of our startup news. We will be back in 3 days for those of you who listen to us on day 1. If you download us later, you can also wait 3 days, but you can also just go into your app and download the second part if you want to. So thanks for now, and we'll hear you soon.
Talk soon. Bye, guys.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.